Imagine waking up to find your rent just spiked by 20%. You look for a cheaper apartment down the street, but every single landlord in the city is charging the exact same inflated price. This isn't a coincidence. It isn't a normal housing shortage. And it isn't just inflation. It is a quiet, calculated war on the American dream of owning a home. Behind the scenes, a single, hidden AI algorithm is pulling the strings, forcing millions into a permanent subscription model for survival. Today, we expose a mathematical trap turning shelter into an inescapable corporate monopoly. To understand how this trap functions, one must look at the rapidly shifting urban landscapes of America's Sunbelt. In cities across Georgia and North Carolina, a strange, quiet transformation has taken place. For generations, metropolitan hubs like Atlanta, Charlotte, and Raleigh represented a sanctuary of relative affordability, attracting families seeking space, stable jobs, and a path toward property ownership. Today, however, these regions have become ground zero for an eerie, unprecedented economic phenomenon. Families with pristine credit scores, immaculate rental histories, and steady, upper-middle-class incomes are discovering that they are subtly being priced out of their entire metropolitan area simultaneously. When their leases come up for renewal, they are hit with massive, double-digit percentage increases that bear no relation to their local wages or individual circumstances. The true anomaly reveals itself when these desperate tenants attempt to shop around. In a healthy capitalistic economy, Adam Smith's invisible hand relies on the mechanics of open competition. If one corporate property owner raises prices beyond what the local market can bear, a competing landlord down the block will naturally lower their rates to capture those displaced tenants. This fundamental desire to undercut rivals is what drives price discovery and keeps basic living expenses grounded in reality. Yet, across these states, that competitive urge has completely vanished. Tenants who walk across the street to a rival complex discover that the quoted rent is identical down to the exact dollar, matching the inflated price they are fleeing. The natural friction of the marketplace has been completely lubricated away. This uniform pricing behavior suggests that these supposedly fierce corporate adversaries are no longer acting as independent market participants, but are instead operating like a single, massive, unified organism. The source of this unprecedented synchronization cannot be found by auditing local leasing offices or examining physical property values. Instead, it is hosted on a distant, centralized cloud-based server. This unsettling coordination shatters the simplistic, widely accepted economic narrative of supply and demand. For years, economists and real estate pundits have insisted that skyrocketing housing costs are merely the tragic consequence of a natural housing shortage. They argue that a growing population competing for a fixed number of physical units inevitably drives costs skyward. However, a deep dive into the corporate balance sheets of institutional landlords reveals an engineered anomaly that completely dismantles this myth. Across the country, brand new luxury multifamily complexes are opening their doors, yet their corridors remain conspicuously quiet. Despite high vacancy rates and empty units, sitting dark for months at a time, these corporate landlords flatly refuse to drop their asking prices to attract occupants. In a traditional real estate model, a vacant apartment is a catastrophic failure. Landlords historically dreaded vacancies because empty units generate zero revenue while still incurring fixed utility, maintenance, and debt servicing costs. But the introduction of algorithmic optimization has birthed a terrifying mathematical exploit that turns the traditional leasing logic completely on its head. Through predictive modeling, institutional landlords have discovered that keeping 10% of their rental inventory intentionally vacant while aggressively raising rents by 20% on the remaining 90% yields significantly higher overall profit margins. This strategy drastically inflates total top-line revenue while simultaneously lowering operational expenses, as fewer active tenants mean reduced wear and tear on the physical property, lower property management staffing costs, and fewer maintenance requests. The math is cold, calculated, and highly effective for shareholders. What the public perceives as a passive market scarcity is, in reality, a deliberate, highly optimized, and artificially engineered squeeze on a baseline human need. The core infrastructure enabling this artificial market squeeze is a sophisticated digital antagonist. Centralized algorithmic pricing software, most notably platforms like RealPage and Yardi. To understand the scale of this technological shift, one must understand how real estate data used to be handled. In a standard marketplace, competing property management firms guard their proprietary operational data with extreme secrecy. Information regarding exact real-time occupancy rates, lease expiration schedules, the actual transactional net prices paid by tenants, and the specific rental discounts or concessions offered behind closed doors are considered highly sensitive trade secrets. If a landlord shares this non-public information with a direct competitor to coordinate pricing, it constitutes a flagrant violation of federal antitrust laws. The genius of modern tech-driven real estate was the creation of an automated digital clearinghouse that bypasses these legal boundaries entirely. Every single morning, thousands of supposedly competing institutional landlords feed their most sensitive, non-public transactional data directly into a centralized software interface. The AI algorithm aggregates this ocean of proprietary information, analyzes real-time supply dynamics across entire zip codes, and calculates the absolute maximum amount of economic pain a specific neighborhood can endure. The platform then outputs a non-negotiable daily price for every individual apartment unit within its ecosystem. By outsourcing their pricing decisions to a singular digital middleman, these corporate landlords have effectively eliminated the operational risk of a price war. The software ensures that no participant can accidentally undercut another, because every player is utilizing the exact same digital brain to set their rates. This is not the organic result of a free market. It is a highly structured, automated, and modern algorithmic cartel operating in plain sight. This total reliance on algorithmic pricing has systematically dismantled human autonomy within the local leasing office, transforming property managers into powerless cogs within a vast corporate machine. Historically, the relationship between a prospective tenant and a leasing agent was defined by human nuance, localized knowledge, and personal negotiation. If an exceptional tenant with a stellar financial record pointed out that a competing building down the road was offering a better deal, a local property manager possessed the administrative authority to offer a counterproposal, waive a fee, or reduce the monthly rate to secure a stable, long-term lease. Today, that entire human dynamic has been completely erased. Investigative findings and internal corporate communications reveal a stark corporate reality. Property managers who attempt to exercise empathy or common sense by negotiating with desperate families are systematically penalized by the software's overarching architecture. Institutional landlords manage their employees through a rigid internal metric known as a compliance rate. Every single property manager is continuously tracked and graded on how frequently they accept the exact, unyielding pricing recommendations generated by the AI algorithm. If a leasing agent attempts to manually override the software's inflated recommendation to fill an empty apartment or help a struggling tenant, the system flags a deviation. The employee must then submit a formal, written justification to a corporate regional director, facing bureaucratic friction, intense corporate reprimands, or outright termination if their overall compliance rate drops below a strict 90% threshold. Empathy, localized market intuition, and basic human negotiation have been fully replaced by a ruthless, top-down algorithm engineered to extract the maximum possible profit per square foot, entirely detached from the lived reality of the human beings paying the bills. The systemic fallout of this automated extraction, extending across the United States, is rapidly driving the structural erosion of the American middle class. Historically, renting an apartment was viewed as a temporary, transitional stepping stone. It was a manageable financial phase that allowed young professionals and growing families to accumulate capital, build a robust savings account, and eventually secure a down payment to purchase a home of their own. This cycle of transitioning from tenancy to property ownership served as a foundational bedrock of generational wealth creation in the United States. However, the widespread adoption of algorithmic pricing has fundamentally broken this wealth-building pipeline. Because the software aggressively monitors and captures every single dollar of a household's rising disposable income through compounding, non-negotiable rent hikes, families are finding it completely impossible to save money. Their financial surplus is entirely consumed by the baseline cost of staying housed. This economic reality aligns perfectly with the broader macroeconomic objectives of institutional Wall Street landlords and private equity titans. These massive financial entities are not investing billions of dollars into single-family and multifamily real estate portfolios with the intention of eventually selling those homes back to the public. Instead, they are actively executing a long-term strategy to permanently alter the nature of housing itself, converting it from an individual wealth-building asset into a perpetual corporate-controlled subscription model. Under this paradigm, shelter is treated exactly like software as a service. It is an asset designed to generate predictable, recurring monthly revenue for corporate balance sheets, while ensuring that the end consumer never acquires a single dime of equity. This is a financial architecture of a neo-feudal rental class, where a massive segment of the population is structurally locked into a lifetime of paying rent, with no hope of ever owning the roof over their heads. This highly coordinated, algorithmically managed ecosystem has finally pushed the housing crisis to a critical regulatory and legal breaking point. Across the country, the framework of automated collusion is facing an unprecedented legal counteroffensive. The Department of Justice's Antitrust Division, alongside numerous state attorneys general, has launched sweeping investigations, executed high-profile FBI raids on corporate landlord headquarters, and filed historic antitrust lawsuits against software giants. The core of these legal battles hinges on a fundamental redefinition of what it means to conspire. Traditional American antitrust laws, forged during the industrial era of railroads and oil monopolies, required prosecutors to prove the existence of an explicit agreement, a literal handshake, or a written contract between competitors agreeing to fixed prices. The operators of these real estate software platforms argue that no such conspiracy exists, claiming that their technology merely offers independent recommendations based on historical data. However, prosecutors are presenting a far more sophisticated legal argument for the digital era. They contend that by knowingly feeding private, non-public operational data into a shared database with the explicit understanding that their competitors are doing the exact same thing, corporate landlords have engaged in an algorithmic conspiracy. The high-stakes legal warfare currently playing out in federal courts is not a simple dispute over real estate logistics. It is a definitive civil rights battle over data transparency, corporate governance, and the boundaries of artificial intelligence in daily life. The ultimate outcome of these legal proceedings will reshape the economic landscape of the nation for generations to come. The struggle for the future of housing is no longer being fought by laborers with hammers, nails, and concrete. It is being fought by data analysts and antitrust attorneys over the lines of code that govern our society. If these predatory algorithms are allowed to continuously dictate the baseline cost of human survival without oversight, the foundational promise of American homeownership will not merely be delayed for the next generation, it will become entirely extinct.